Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Aaron Snodderly, as you've said. I am the Executive Director of the Tennessee Independent Baptists for Religious Liberty, and we are an organization that was founded by some of Tennessee's finest pastors across the state of Tennessee for the purpose of promoting and protecting our religious freedom here in our state and around the country. As such, I stand before you this afternoon for the purpose of encouraging you to not only support but to vote for HB 1137. As we look over the last year, we've seen a pandemic that none of us expected or planned for, and we saw various responses to the pandemic. But some of the responses, as Christians and people who cherish our First Amendment rights, we feel overstepped their bounds. And we look at states like California, New York, and we see churches, small and great in size, who were told that their churches had to be closed permanently until a governor told them it was okay or a health official told them it was okay to reopen. And they've been threatened with fines, they've been threatened with jail time. Even some pastors across the state have spent time in jail already simply because they wanted to do what the First Amendment gives them the right to do, and that is exercise their religious freedom. Now, we're thankful that in Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee has been a stalwart when it comes to defending our First Amendment rights, and we thank him for that. We thank you as a House and as a Senate, a state legislature, for defending our First Amendment rights. But we ask you to go a step further and help us guarantee that in the future, if something ever arises again, a governor could not make the same mistake that those governors in other states around the country have made this past year. And so we ask you to go a step further and protect the rights of churches to meet and worship God according to the dictates of their own conscience. We're very familiar with the First Amendment, but I would like to just read it quickly. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And I want you to notice it does not say unless there is a pandemic. Then it goes on to say, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. And again, it does not say unless there is a pandemic. And then it says, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I believe that the right to freely exercise our religion is paramount. But in the case of this bill, I believe the clause of the First Amendment that says we have a right to peaceably assemble is most important. Because churches do not meet to riot on the streets and burn our cities and towns. We meet to worship God. And so we believe that the First Amendment clearly identifies our right to freely exercise our religion and to do so in an assembly that we choose, whether at our church or at a park, wherever it might be. Now, it's interesting to note that the 14th Amendment actually says that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And so we believe that the 14th Amendment says that states have to abide by the First Amendment. Therefore, no governor should be allowed to force restrictions upon churches or people of faith, even during the time of a pandemic. Now, the Supreme Court agreed with this analysis because in 1937, in the case DeJong versus Oregon, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the right to peaceably assemble for lawful discussion, however unpopular or popular, cannot be made a crime. And they did so on the basis that the 14th Amendment's due process clause guarantees us the right to exercise our First Amendment rights. Even in the state of Tennessee, we have codified this by stating in the third section of Article 1 that all men have a natural and indefeasible right to worship Almighty God according to the dictates of their own conscience. And again, I'll add, it does not say unless there is a pandemic. And then it goes on later to say that no human authority can in any case whatever, in other words, even a governor or a health official, control or interfere with the rights of conscience, and that no preference shall ever be given by law to any religious establishment or mode of worship. And the key word at the end of the third section there is mode of worship. If a church chooses their mode of worship to be in an actual church building or at a park, even during the time of a pandemic, not only does our U.S. Constitution give us the right to worship God as we choose, but the Tennessee Constitution says no one, even a governor or health official, can limit our mode of worship. Last but not least, in Article 1, Section 23, the Tennessee Constitution also says that citizens have a right in a peaceable manner to assemble together for their common good, to instruct their representatives, and to apply to those invested with the powers of government for redress of grievances or other proper purposes by address of remonstrance. Clearly, we have a U.S. federal right to worship. We have a state constitutional right to worship, and we ask you to help us protect these rights in the future by making it very clear and obvious, even more so, that no government or health official can restrict these rights. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, friends. My name is Aaron Snodderly, and this is your Capitol update for the week of March 14th, 2021. As you just saw, I had the opportunity just a few minutes ago to testify before the Civil Justice Committee there at the state capitol in Nashville, Tennessee, and I testified on behalf of Representative Rusty Grill's bill, HB 1137, a bill that is designed to protect the rights of Christians and churches to continue to meet and have church services during the time of a national pandemic such as the coronavirus. We very much appreciate Mr. Grills for taking the time to sponsor this legislation. He's done a fantastic job moving it through committee, and we ask you to pray for him as it now goes to the House and will be voted on by the full House probably next week sometime. Now, I'm not going to take the time to give a full report this week because it's a busy week for me, and I'm preaching a revival in East Tennessee over near Bristol, and I'm very much appreciative for a friend who flew me to Nashville this week. You can see his plane. He took time out of his busy schedule to fly me to Nashville so I could testify today. But I do want you to pray really quick about several things. Even right now as I'm filming this afternoon, on Wednesday, the United States Senate is considering the Equality Act in committee. So pray that it fails. There are other bills that we've spoken of in recent weeks. Continue to pray about them. Pray that they will pass and that God's will be done. Now, I know that we're living in some rough times, but God is still on his throne. We need to keep looking up, knowing that he is always looking down. May God bless each of you. May he use all of us to bless America. And I thank all of you for investing in your future through our ministry.
I don't believe that our governor, right now would do that. But my only concern is when we lock this into the code, there's absolutely nothing he can do. And so if you have a virus that spreads like wildfire through the churches, there's absolutely nothing that he can do.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my only concern.
Well, he would have the right with the amended version to shut down churches that are infected, is my understanding. And let me just, do I have the right to speak, Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry. Okay. I understand your thinking on that. But basically what you're saying, one bad apple means we have to throw out the whole bushel. And if that was your finger that was infected, you wouldn't cut off your head. That's what we're doing in California, New York, and several other states across the country right now. We're saying, hey, there's a potential that even though people go to Walmarts and Kroger's and they go buy cars and they go to restaurants and they eat out every day of the week, there's a potential that 1 or 2 days of the week they actually went to church, they might have caught the virus there. And so even though none of the other churches are affected, we're going to shut down all the churches because that one finger was infected, so let's just cut off the head and kill the whole thing.
We need to
that is
wrap this up.
Yes, and so that we don't believe that's the case. We don't believe you throw out the bushel or the baby with the bathwater.
I don't think the governor would shut down churches in Tennessee, and we're not California.
Right.
But we don't have this problem right now. And so this legislation to tie the hands of the governor concerns me when it's not an issue with our governor. It may be an issue in California. There's probably some great legislation for California, which I'm from California, but not here. And that's my only thing. And I appreciate your passion and everything.
So to keep from tying the hands of the governor, you want to give the governor the right to tie the hands of the church.